So if you remember last time we talked about time in music and how subjective is the way musicians treat time. So it's not like exactly seconds, it's always in beats, but the length of beats and the speed of those beats could be different. And we looked at all of these possible durations, right? In general, we work with the quarter note, like tan, 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 tan would be, but sometimes our beat could be different. It could be a half note, it could be an eighth note. And then the number of beats that happens before you come back to your strong beat is going to determine your meter. So meter is this word here. Meter can be duple, triple, or quadruple. So duple. And then the triple. And quadruple. Like that. So meter, rhythm is actually the design that goes over the meter. So right now, let's say I was playing just the beat, right? So that the thing that was going over the beat is the rhythm. So rhythm is just any kind of like possible drawing or possible design of shorter and longer durations and even silences. Then tempo. Tempo is this or so we can choose a faster tempo of our pulse or slow tempo of our pulse. So these concepts are very, very important. Don't forget them ever. Okay, so these are durations, and you did go over the durations and the pyramid with our durations. How many 16th notes, for example, we can fit in a whole note? Like if we were to replace a whole note, can anybody tell?
16 of them.
16. Yeah, exactly. Or how many quarter notes do we need to replace a whole note?
4 of them.
4. Yeah. So it's just the name, quarter of a whole note, quarter of a pi, or an eighth of a pi. So you would need 7 other eighth notes in order to make your pi complete. Okay, and these are examples of time signature. So time signature is that fraction that we use in the beginning of a musical composition. We only put it in the beginning or when it changes. And the time signature means how many beats we have in every measure, and the measure is that line that shows us that, you know, the metric unit is over, like so like in the quadruple meter, like those 1, 2, 3, 4 are over, and then the next 1, 2, 3, 4 with a strong 1 is coming. So how many, and what is the duration of the beat? So the bottom number is the duration of the beat, and you can see that over here the duration of the beat is eighth note, 3 eighth notes in each measure. So sometimes measures are like that. And then the dot on the side means that the note is extended, the duration of the note is extended by half of its value. So we're particularly interested in the dotted half note, because the dotted half note is going to give us 3 beats. So it's a 3-beat note that we can count and we frequently use in our rhythm exercises. Okay, these are examples of meter, examples of tempo. We did rhythm clapping exercises, correct? Then we did look at the piano keys and piano pitches, right? C, D, E are the 3 white keys around the 2 black keys, and F, G, A, B are 3 white keys around the 3 black keys. Now, the next important thing for us is to remember the distances between any possible keys. When you look at the keyboard, any distance, like between white and black or black and white, is actually kind of like the same ratio between the pitch frequencies, and it's called half step. So any distance, approximately, it is actually the same. It's a half step. It's an increase from one from one frequency to the next frequency is going to be an increase of approximately like 5.95% in frequency. So like if you're interested in vibrations, so all of these are the same, and it's very important because it will determine how we change the song from one key to another. For example, if we try to play this from new keys, it may not sound right if we're only on white keys. It actually sounds wrong, right? In order to sound right, we have to, you see, we have to have exactly the same. Over here we had the half step, and here we will have to have half step, then the song sounds the same. So basically everything we measure in music, all of the distances we measure in music are these half steps or whole steps. So the whole step will be 2 half steps. In general, whole steps are between white keys, except for here and here when there is no black key. And between black keys, except when you go from the group of 2 black keys to 3, or from 3 to 2. So over here it's obviously more. It's like 1, 2, and 3. 3 half steps, 1.5 step. But over here it's a whole step, and then a whole step, and then a whole step. Okay, so knowing about half steps and whole step is very important. And actually, there was one more technical thing that you could learn, is learning a chromatic scale. Chromatic scale is when you play all the possible keys of the keyboard, and you can go forever like this. So there is a rule. You will be using finger 1 on the white key, finger 3 on the black key, like this. But when there is a half step between the 2 white keys, then you will quickly put finger 2 before you use finger 3. And finger 2 again, like this. Now we're going to look at lesson 2 and the music notation. The text in this lesson is very, very self-explanatory, and there are many videos. So please do watch all of the videos. They will be extremely helpful. But right now I'll just go over this material. So when we look at the music score, the first thing we see those systems of 5 parallel lines. So 5 parallel lines are very important, and they're called music staff, right? Music staff. Here's the example of 5 parallel lines, right? Now I'm going to draw notes on lines or between the lines. And for example, for this one, I just drew a note just below the line, but I kind of tried to keep the same size of the note. So when I draw notes in this direction, it means up. This direction means down. And there is really no other way to fit an extra note in there. So these notes from line to space, from space to line, and so on, will be all the white keys on the keyboard. But now we won't really know what kind of keys are these until we use a clef. So clef is actually a sign that would help us understand how we read the notes. There could be different clefs. So one kind of clef is this. This is called treble clef. Treble clef. It's also called G clef. So this G clef means that a note that is situated over here, like on the second line where the clef begins, is G. And not only G, but G4. G4 is, so we look at our keyboard, G1, G2, G3, G4. It's the G4 that's located above the C4, above middle C. So this is a G that's above middle C, G4. And then all the notes can be figured out from there. So if you go up, what note do we get? The next one from G.
A.
Yeah, do you remember F, A, G, F, G, A, B around the 3 black keys, right? So we have G, then A and B will be next notes. And then below G will be F. So that's the group of 4 black keys, 4 white keys. That's a group of 4 white keys around 3 black keys, right? And then we can also locate the 3 white keys that would go around the black, around the 2 black keys. So this would be C, D, and E. But this would be C, D, and E higher up here, right? So this would be C5, D5, and E5. And if we want C4, we will want to go below that F. So this will be E4, and then we will have to go down D4 and C4. You see, when we have a clef, we can figure out the location. So it's only enough to know which note will be on which line or in which space. And then from there, you can count the rest of the notes. You can go even further, all the way up or all the way down. And I'm going to explain how. Now, another important clef is bass clef. And the bass clef, it begins on this line. So, and by the way, we count lines like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It begins on the 4th line and sort of looks like this, and also has 2 dots in the spaces. And we can count spaces as well: 1, 2, 3, 4. So the dots will go in space 3 and space 4. This is called bass clef. The bass clef means that this note where it begins is F3, always. This is a very, very specific way to notate the notes. From this F3, we can figure out the rest of the notes. F, and then we go 1 up, is going to be the next letter, next natural pitch. F, next letter is G. And it's also going to be G3 because it's in the same octave, in the same range. F, G, A, and then B. F, G, A, B. A3 and B3. And then eventually we're actually getting to C4. And look, in order to write C4, I had to use an additional line. Same way I had to use an additional line over here. So these lines, these additional lines, help us write more notes above the 5 lines or below the 5 lines. And they are called ledger lines. So if we try to combine these 2 clefs, and this is what happens in piano music, we actually combine 2 clefs and 2 systems, and this is called grand staff. So piano music uses grand staff a lot. We will have notes that are really fitting nicely this treble clef. Look, we can go on and on and on, and then start using the ledger lines like this. We can use up to 4 ledger lines, and that's common. So if I do that, I actually covered all of the notes from middle C, going up all the way to C6. So I covered this range here. That's 2 octaves. And I can do the same thing, covering 2 more octaves using the bass clef. Look, I will go from C all the way down like this, and we will count the notes backwards. So this way I get to C2. This one was C3, and this is C4. This is C4. Well, right now I'm going so fast that you probably have to just trust me. C6. So look, it's so nice. The grand staff, the use of treble clef and bass clef allow us to use all of these notes. So this is actually a big chunk of the modern piano, right? And then for the rest of it, we can use ladder lines, or we can also use a sign which is called octave sign. Like, for example, when you do this 8 and a bracket above some notes, that means you would just play that 1 octave higher. Or if you do 8 and a bracket below the notes, then you will play it 1 octave lower. So that's also an option. There are different options, and there's not so much music, you know, that is entirely, you know, on one side of the piano or another side of the piano, not for too long time. So the system with grand staff, treble, and bass clefs has been working very, very well so far. Okay, now I'm going to switch to our lesson. Okay, does this look familiar now? So we're looking at the grand staff. There is a bracket before this, before the class, right? The bracket that combines the treble and bass clef, which means we're going to read this system together, and whatever happens in the treble and bass clef is going to happen simultaneously. For that, I'm switching again. I'm going to go here. So this is an example that I just drew yesterday for another section. When we have notes on top of each other, like this and this, these notes are played simultaneously. This and this is also played simultaneously. When we have two neighbor pitches, there is no other way to put them on top of each other. If we put them like exactly on top of each other, they will overlap, and it will be, you will just see an oval. It will be difficult to understand what it is. So there's a notational convention that we just sort of like attach them to each other like that, and they will use the same stem. Okay, now the notes are also played together when the treble and bass clef kind of overlap. So we can understand that they're played together by just counting the beats. So beat 1 goes together, and then beat 2, both right hand and left hand, or both treble clef and bass clef, will stay. And then on beat 3 they play together again, and then on beat 4 they play together again. Okay, over here on beat 1, left hand and right hand will play together, then only left hand will play in a bass clef. Why do I say left hand and right hand? Because look, treble clef is kind of designed for the right hand, right? Because of our position in the keyboard. And then bass clef is sort of designed for the left hand. We're taking care of the notes on the right or notes on the left. And it's just very, very common to think that treble clef is your right hand, bass clef is your left hand. Of course, there will be exceptions. We could have both bass clefs, you know, for the right and left when we have to play it down there, or both hands playing up there and using treble clef. But in general, when we look at music like this, it's going to be treble clef for the right and bass clef for the left. And also, in general, the top system is for the right and the bottom system for the left. So we go like like this. Okay. Yeah. So when we look at the grand staff, we read these notes from the bottom to the top, and we're going to align left hand and right hand. We will make sure that they play simultaneously. If one hand plays it and the other doesn't play, then you will only have, you know, something written for the right hand only, and then something written for the left hand only. Like this way, your right hand played, left hand played. And to substitute the notes that we just had, we will have to use a rest sign. So the rest sign we didn't cover yet, but we will next time. So rest sign for the whole measure would look like a small rectangle hanging from the fourth line. Okay, so moving back to the lesson. This is our notation. Knowing that you have the bass clef, knowing that this little, you know, this line where the bass clef begins, where you see the dot, is F3, F below the middle C, will enable you to figure out the rest of the notes. Same for the treble clef. So here, okay, the fine print doesn't really tell you. So this place here, the beginning of the treble clef is G above the middle C. So that should also enable you to read music, to read the notes in the treble clef. Okay. Further here, you have explanation for ledger lines, how they work. These are your landmark notes. Please remember them. So G above middle C, F below middle C, and the middle C. By knowing these three keys, three notes, you can already read music. Okay, here's the location of these notes relative to the keyboard. And then we play our first scales. So what is a scale? Scale is a number of consecutive notes. We're going to play scales in 5-finger position when we only need to use 5 fingers. 1, remember, 1 is your thumb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to use our hand position beginning on C, and that would be called C major scale. So watch this. 1 on C, and then I'm going to find the rest of the keys after that. All the white keys after that. So let's have you locate your right hand on C major position. And remember your hand shape, you can cover the fist, and that would be a nice bolted hand. Okay, so let's have you practice C major scale in the right hand, and then eventually locate the C below the middle C, that would be C3, and begin with your finger 5 and play it in the left hand as well. Okay? Dynamics. You can play loud, like you can play soft. Right? And you can play anywhere in between, like mezzo forte would be medium loud, for example. Crescendo means growing faster, for example. Like now I was growing faster, growing louder. Diminuendo means going softer, so like right? Variations in our sound. Okay, then we have our first reading exercises. And when we do our first reading exercises, we need to remember a few types of articulation. Articulation means how we play piano. So we could, for example, play connected, right? Go hold the key and then only release after you play the next key. That's connected. So connected in Italian is legato. It's sort of like tied, legato. By the way, when you click on this word, the highlighted word, it will remind you. The glossary will pop up and will remind you what it means. So legato is connected. Non-legato is detached. So you just play the key and release and then play the next key. Connected is indicated with the slur. This arch here, this arch is the slur. Or it's also called legato sign. Legato sign. Okay? So when you see something like this, it means that you will play connected. Obviously, sometimes, like for example, if you have a same note and it's part of a bigger slur, it just means you will play it as close as possible, but really nothing special. Okay, and then you have a number of exercises to practice. For example, 3-note melody. Read the goals. Think about your goals, okay? Think about your strategies, what you can do. For example, you could draw. You could write in your finger numbers if that would help. If you can write the counting. So let's open this exercise. Again, it reminds you how you're going to strategize when you practice. And then look, I already drew something. I drew my counts, right? The finger numbers are there for me. And this line here, sort of, I used to help myself understand that, okay, I'm standing on the same note, then I'm going one up, and then I'm going down, and then one more down. So you could use arrows like that. Even over here, for example, if you don't really see that you go one down, you can remind yourself by using arrows or arrow up like this. So everything that helps you read music faster. Okay, and then obviously these numbers above the notes are the finger numbers. So remind yourself these finger numbers: 1, 2, 3. Then we remember this is middle C or C4. We're going to position ourselves on C4, and then I'm going to locate my 3 keys. It's called 3-note melody, right? 3-note melody. So I'm going to play only 3 notes, and that's how I will go. So let's say my pulse is 1, 2, ready, go. Then I stay, and then I go 1 down, same key, and then go 1 up, go down, and then I stay for 2 beats, and then it's over. So what did I learn? For example, if I look at this, and this, and this, it's the same, right? C, D, and then again C, D, and then again C, D, and then eventually I stop on E. So when I read music, I also I search for patterns which are the same. There will be frequent situations when you will have the same patterns, or you will have a big chunk of melody that is repeated. So just identify that before you start. So when you're, for example, going through the piece and it obviously repeats itself, you don't have to read again note by note. You already know that you played it once. So this is how we go. Okay, one more feature that you can explore with this app is this button here, that button in the center that indicates the piano. It will only highlight for you if you connect with a MIDI cable. So that printer type of cable, printer USB, if you would use that cable into your MIDI port in the keyboard, which would be the printer type MIDI port, and then USB or USB Lightning or USB-C to your computer or your tablet or your iPad, then it's going to read. So it will cue you, for example, like this. Right now, it will just show how it cues, and then with this metronome clicking, you will be able to play, and then it will check for your errors. Obviously, here it says that I played 0 notes, so I didn't really do any errors because I didn't play. But it will give you a sense of where you might need to correct yourself. For example, if your position is completely wrong, you will see that as an error, and you could work on correcting that. Okay, and this button here is metronome. You can speed it up or slow it down at your liking, or stop it completely if you don't need it. So that's also a nice feature. Okay, hold on. So I'm going to stop this. I will go back to the lesson. Here it will stop you again and ask you for feedback. This feedback will record in your profile. When you go back to your profile page, it would remind you what exercises you did, okay, and what feedback you gave to yourself. Okay, so for the next time, please go over all of the reading exercises, and there are several videos that will coach you on how to read exercises, how to read these exercises. So you can either watch videos and then practice, or even watch videos and practice at the same time together with me. Okay, so complete these reading exercises. There are more for the left hand. Left hand will use the position below middle C. So that's called middle C position in the left hand, and it also will give you 3 to 5 note melodies. That way, by drilling these melodies, you will become more and more familiar with music notation, and eventually we'll start practicing real songs. Okay, thank you very much.